Okay.
Daryl Huckabee on another episode of What's the Huck? So let's get right into it. All right, Daryl Huckabee here with another episode of What the Huck. Huck is my name, but it's also an acronym for hope, health, understanding, community, culture, as well as knowledge. And today I'm excited because we're going to be talking about culture, and I have some very special guests joining us. One, a very good friend, my cousin sister, my sister cousin, Michelle Garden. She is the founder of the Elm City Lit Fest. And then we also have Professor William Foster, who is a comic book collector and historian. Now, you're going to have to enlighten me on that because I wasn't even familiar that those even existed. But welcome, and glad to have you on today.
Pleasure to be here, brother.
Happy to be here to talk about DiasporaCon, Daryl.
DiasporaCon it is, the Black Comic Book and Graphic Novel Convention, right?
Taking place conference. Convention is what usually con means convention. Yes, they have comic cons and all over the place. And comic cons are where people show up dressed up, do the whole. This is a conference that will showcase the opportunities and all the opportunities and possibilities of people that want to be in the industry, because it is a whole industry with a whole lot of people of color. And what I've been learning since planning this conference is that there's a whole culture out here.
Okay. So first of all, it's happening April 23rd at Quinnipiac University, the North Campus. Now, which campus is that?
North Campus is at 370 Bassett Road in North Haven.
Okay.
Right off the highway at the law school, medical school building. It's a beautiful complex. Plenty of parking for free. And I do want to mention that your $20 admission also includes a lunch, a meal.
Okay.
And the first 100 people will get a free comic book, courtesy of Alternate Universe in New Haven, the comic book store in New Haven.
Okay. How can people register or sign up?
They can register online, DiasporaCon, on Eventbrite. Look for DiasporaCon on Eventbrite. It will pop up and they can register in there. We also have a $75 fee for people that want to sell. Did I freeze? I'm sorry. For people that want that for vendors, buy, sell, trade, vendors, like whatever. That's $75 for a table if you want to have a table.
Okay. So let's talk about DiasporaCon and what it is, because I'm sure many people probably have never heard the word or the concept or are even familiar with the whole industry as you were beginning to talk about it.
So diaspora is the African diaspora. So everything that Culturally Lit Elm City Lit Fest does is amplifying, enhancing, exposing everyone to the awareness and significance of the arts of the African diaspora. And as Professor Foster will let us inform us, he is he's a historian. There's been some Blacks in comics going way back, and I will give it to him now.
No problem at all. Thank you, Daryl, for inviting us to your program. We're very excited about DiasporaCon. We hope we get good participation, because if we get good participation, we'll be back year after year.
Awesome.
The image of African Americans in comics. It's my life. When people say, I say I'm a comic book historian, most people go, oh, you a comics? Well, what do you think about Richard Pryor? No, I said comic books. Join me, won't you?
Right.
And I study the images, and I've written about it. I've written several books. I've written articles in a number of magazines. life is good. I'm not, and it's in defiance of people told me that whenever somebody wants to be involved in art in whatever way, there's always some person that wants to tell you, oh, that's you need to learn how to make some real money.
Right.
If it's about the money, you're right. Do like they used to do in the 50s. Every black person went to work for the post office. They got money,
Yep.
How much satisfaction did you get out of creating art that shows us, that talks about us and our journey? African American history.
Passion as well for people. So you got to follow your passion. Now, as you're getting into this, because when I was a kid, I used to be heavily into comic books and I used to collect them, but at that time, either I wasn't exposed or they didn't exist necessarily from our culture, because, what I was exposed to were non-ethnic comic book novels and things of that nature. So it wasn't until I, became an adult that we got into Black comics and people involved in the industry.
It is true, my brother. The images of us didn't start appearing in great numbers until like the early 60s. There was some in the 50s which I traced. There was some in the 40s that I traced. Black people were doing the work, but they weren't getting the exposure. And that's the hardest part, distribution and getting feedback. But I only got 2 words for you, let you know how much far it's come. Black Panther.
Yeah.
And that was everybody. Crossover character, crossover storyline. The story intrinsically was the idea that this was the one nation in Africa that they never took slaves from. Everybody wants to hear that story. He's the king of one of the richest nations on the face of the earth because they have the sole usage of a particular mineral called vibranium, and so you would go to Wakanda and you would only see the same thing that you always saw, jungle, vines, and trees. But if you were in Wakanda, the vines were actually, conduits for computers. They were very far advanced. And people were, as you get into the new political spectrum where America feels that they could just invade anybody and take over and, pat you on the head, make you feel like they're doing something for you. Wakanda, they could never get in. Right. CIA, FBI, nobody was getting in. They had to get some superheroes.
So there's different elements to producing the story. Obviously, you have the art, the graphics. So let's talk about the different components of comics and
problem.
Novels.
And I just have to have a few notes here to help us out.
And also, I want to talk about too the people that will be in it, because one of them is Joe Young, who is, and I want to say we got a lot of folks in Connecticut that are like major players in this industry. And Joe Young is one of them. He has a production company in Hartford. He's a comic book creator himself, but he teaches. He's been on Ebony, Essence magazines. He just did a deal, cartoon deal too. But Bill, go ahead with your.
Oh no, Joe! I definitely want to forget because I don't want to forget him because we worked together. Joe used to have the largest comic strip in America. He would draw it on large packs. He'd get kids everywhere he went to put their work on it, so they became part of the story. We are cartoons, we are comic books, we are graphic novels, we are movies, we are television shows. We are really spread out in media. And people may remember 1 or 2, and even on mainstream superheroes, there was a guy on The Flash who was a superhero, and he wore a mask. You couldn't tell if he was Black or not. And only like the commissioner of the police knew who he was. And so he, after his 50s passed, and he comes back to the 70s, he comes back. Some great stories in there. The number of women who are superheroes comes out. We're telling the story. The number of female creators has gotten larger.
Oh my gosh.
Whenever I go to a show, please.
Yeah, our logo was designed by Alana Ladson, who grew up in New Haven and is a wonderful graphic designer. So I gave her a concept, came out with it, and we went with it.
And we're going to be talking to people about the legitimate way to get involved in the industry, because I love movies, but movies have bad images in them. The idea is that how do you become a hit writer or an artist is that you do a 15-second montage with somebody throwing something in a trash can, and then suddenly they got $4 billion.
Right.
And in between that, no one ever talks about. DiasporaCon gives us opportunity to talk about, if this is what you want to do, this is what you have to commit to do it. If you're a writer, if you're an artist, how do you find partners to set up? I'll just take you through sort of a very brief idea of what you have to start to do. First of all, you got to do the work. You got to look it up. Okay. Printing is much more accessible. I don't want to say easier because that gives people the false idea that that anybody can do it. If you commit yourself to it, you absolutely can. So that's education. Finding talent. Are you a writer? Everybody who's involved in comic book has a version of a story they want to tell. Every Black family has a story that no one's heard. Gives you a chance to be original. Superman, Batman were the guys I admired when I first got into it because they fought for justice.
Right.
And that was a struggle for us in the 50s and 60s and continues to be, sadly. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
But whatever we would put out, media would pick up and then they would, they transport into something else. But they've always been Black artists and writers and publishers and printers. And their story has never been told. DiasporaCon gives us a chance to see you can fit into this history. How to set a budget. Because everybody thinks you can do it, well, I'll make some copies of my machine. You can, but then you also have to do layout, and God help me, you got to do some proofreading, please, because that's your image you're putting out to the world. And if you don't know how to spell, it's kind of hard. I will buy it anyway because that's what I do. I'm a collector and a historian. But the idea is that everybody has to have an appreciation that the more professional this looks, the better off you will do. And if you don't believe it, go to a store and see two signs, and one of them is like kind of thrown up, and the other one is like well-produced and mass-produced. Which one are you going to go to? That's how we go.
Just like anything else, I think it's important to have a team around you, a team of different people that contribute, that have, bring different talents to the table, because it's just not one talent. It's just not, being a good graphic person or a good writer or, publisher, whatever. You got to bring a group of people to kind of synergize the whole element of what's going to be put out there to the public.
And also who we're going to have to speak to that, Reggie Augustine, who is he grew also local, a New Haven native. He teaches at Hill House, and he self-published his comic book that is now out there. So people are going to be taken through the steps of the journey.
Let's talk about everybody that's going to be part of the conference.
So we have, like I said, we have Joe Young. Joe Young is going to be talking about opportunities and on expanding your brand. Reggie Augustine, the journey of self-publishing, circumstance to fruition. TC Ford, who along with Dr. Bill did produced one of the first Comic-Cons in Connecticut, the Brass City Comic-Con in Waterbury, City, Waterbury. For many years, and who's also a historian. He's going to be talking about surviving the comic book industry because he's been in the game for a minute. Raheem Nelson, who's a younger artist as well, and Raheem's going to be talking about NFTs because now everybody got these images, and they're just out there, and you can make money off of them. So Raheem's going to be talking about NFTs, and then Bill is going to close it out on a panel with Michael Jai White, who, of course, we all know, the actor that played the first Black superhero image, Spawn, and John Jennings, who is oh my God, a multitude of things, but he's out there in California and Hollywood and worked on Black Panther among many other projects.
His work on books is amazing. His books on graphic novels have just flooded the market. You cannot look into go to any bookstore and not find his name is listed as the writer, or the artist consultant. Love the brother. He and I have been together on the forum at the East Coast Black Age of Comic Conventions in Philadelphia, which this year celebrates their 21st year.
Okay.
And it wasn't easy, but it was important to do. And I could give you just a brief glimpse of how we put that together. Most comic book conventions would have one panel out of all the ones they offer, and we call it the Black panel. Yeah. And they never asked Black people. We were terribly offended by that.
Right.
But we were at one and we were like standing around looking at it from our different tables, and somebody said, this is something else. And the brother there said, listen, I have some connection at a local university. Why don't we go there? We can have a room today and put on our conference. And that's how ECBOC started. And that first show, we had a brother come down from Canada who videotaped us. We had a gentleman that had been doing artistic images in advertising and books since the 1950s. And we had a 17-year-old brother was doing his first book. So we had the full range covered that first day, and we knew we were going in the right way. Now we have more women coming. We had a cosplay presentation. Stars came. The female actress who played Uhura came. Boy, she turned it out.
Nichelle Nichols.
Yep. And who is still alive. I'm rapping my knuckles on this table. Please stay alive as long as you can, my sister. You've changed many a life.
Wow. And it's crazy to think that this industry, you know, it's been around for so long, but it's not really been on the forefront within our culture and our community. So I'm really excited that you all are doing the conference here in Connecticut. And like you said, Professor, you know, this hopefully is going to be the first of many more, making an annual thing.
Well, Connecticut actually holds a special place in the comic book and comic strip industry. Whenever somebody got big and famous, a lot of them were coming from New York. First place they wanted to do was move to Connecticut. And that's still true now. I said, I could take a train back to New York, but, you know, New York may not be a place, you know, to feel artistically inspired. And now we have brothers who come up from New York and sisters who come up from New York. Whenever I go to a show and when other people are putting out feelers to find out, here's the best part. You have to go to a table, you know, Black people there because they standing behind their books. Pass my card to them, tell them what we're doing. And if I may add one thing that I always tell them, they want to give me free stuff. I said, no. You won't be in business 5 minutes.
Right.
If you give out what you hard work for free. Take my money. Give me 2, in fact, because I'll pass them on to somebody else, and you never know what might inspire somebody. That's what we have to do. The idea that somebody thinking I can, you know, I'll go here, I'll give you my idea, and you know, and I'll give you some money later. Yeah, and I'm going to sell you a vacuum cleaner.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
We have to have respect for each other, and the whole idea what you said about pulling a team together.
Yeah,
absolutely. You pull the best talent you can. You treat them fairly, and your reputation grows. And a lot of us haven't figured that out. You know, they think that something's bad is going to happen to them, and you know, I'm going to do my own work. That's cool, but having appreciation is still going to require a level of professionalism.
Absolutely. So let's down the list of or talent areas that, you know, people that would need to come to this conference. You know, obviously graphic and, you know, being an artist, but, you know, everything else that encompasses, you know, this industry and you know, making money in the industry, because it's, I don't know the numbers, but I can kind of guesstimate it's probably a multi-million, if not billion-dollar industry.
It's true, but the principle that gains your work experience is what you use. The pencilers, colorists, artists who draw the images, you know, going through various drafts to try to get it better. I had a brother I knew, his book was spanking, but he said, I'm pulling them all back because I'm not satisfied with the art. That's how deep it was to him. It was not about the money, but what I put out and what I put my name on.
Right.
There've been a number of brothers who've done books. There's a book called Brain Tablet out of New York. And we were doing a show. Me, Jerry Kraft, and Alex Simmons were doing a show. And this brother showed up in the audience. So he pulled me aside when there was like a lull in the conversation. He said, would you like a copy? Yes. You know, how much money you want? I got an ATM across the corner. I'll buy some, you know, because I have an appreciation. Some things are so rare. If you don't get them when you try to, you'll never get them. The first African-American comic book produced all by African-Americans, 1947, all Negro comics. I'm at a comic book show in Connecticut, and a guy who's from Philadelphia, and we're talking, is he knowledgeable? Young white guy. He said, would you like a copy? I had to get myself from stuttering. Oh, yeah, I'd be okay. You know, and what he charged me for it, I would be embarrassed to share you with, and it's not in the best condition, like I care. You know, and it's a part of history, holding it in my hands, almost brought tears to my eyes, because I have an appreciation that they weren't being supported. They did the best they could with what they had. And now we're in a better position to do better. I don't complain about somebody's trying to keep me from doing stuff. Look in my face and see if you see anything that's going to keep me from doing what needs to be done.
Oh my God.
The same thing I want to inspire my students with. You know,
I want to say too that a part of this is in creating LitFest and enhancing literacy within our community. Some of the first things that, like in getting young people, getting our youth to read. They'll pick up a comic book, a graphic novel in a minute. And this is not just to say, like, what's the guy from the Black Eyed Peas? He has a graphic novel out now.
Oh yeah, I read about that.
Right.
Yeah.
John Lewis, our esteemed senator that just passed on. He has a graphic novel series on the march across the bridge, like in the civil rights. There are things that we can learn about ourselves through this genre, and
pass on to children.
There's a huge industry that people can think of as an alternative or as a profession to get in, and especially in times of COVID, when you got to either be, sometimes we in person and sometimes we're in virtual. This is something that everyone, like, people can think about the opportunities. There's so much talent out here, Daryl, that like we've been getting left and right. Every day I get more emails and mail, not just from Bill, because Bill got the collection of life. And he mentioned Jerry Craft. Jerry Craft is also a Connecticut resident.
Okay.
That is started one of the initiators of the comic conference in the Comic-Con at the Schomburg in New York. Right? The Black Comic Conference there. Like, folks are all known outside of Connecticut. We got so much gold right here in Connecticut.
We do. And it's not being tapped into properly. So, I'm glad this is a way to, extract it and bring it to the surface. Professor Foster, the physical comic books, they hold value, don't they?
They do. The sad part is, and maybe I can help dispel a myth about that, is that in the 1990s, a bunch of books, most comic book companies published just a whole bunch of books weren't that valuable. So somebody thinks that everybody is past that myth where, I got a comic book, it must be worth $5 million. Well, not necessarily.
Right.
You have to do some research and do some background on it. But if it's an original book and you got the first copy, that's going to be worth something to somebody. It's sad how it goes. Everybody thinks that the way that we value comic books stays the same, but there are places where I've seen Maury Turner, who was the first Black comic book syndicated guy who was encouraged by Charles Schulz, We Pals, and which was turned into Kid Power as a TV show. And Maury Turner was such a big-hearted guy. Whenever I write him a note, he'd always write me back a personal note. He'd sign every copy of his book. I said, this brother is for real, and he never had to do that. I'm so sorry he passed recently, but I'm looking back at some of the stuff he sent me, because I keep files on everybody who stays in touch with me, and he signed everything. And people don't get it. They don't understand it. People walk right past it. I've been places when I saw somebody walk right in front of me, pick it up, put it back down, and I grabbed it right back up, and I'm sorry for you, but happy for me,
Right.
Because I'm going to put it in a forum where everybody gets the chance to see it. We are in a truly, I've never thought of it this way, but having spoken to both of you, we're in a renaissance.
Yeah.
Exactly.
On a variety of different levels. Yeah.
Black Lives Matter, big place in comic books. The first Black Wonder Woman, Nubia, getting her own book again after the 1960s, and she's looking real fine. So it's not like somebody had to be like a hood rat to be Nubia. So that people are seeing images of ourselves that cover all the spectrum, and that's so important. That's what kept me going, is that I was waiting for that day to come around. Now people don't understand it. I was talking to a mother, and we always have our table set up next to each other. What's your name? He said, I'm not giving my kid no comic books. And I said, well, here's an interesting thought. Superman, first comic book, 1938. I said, do you have any idea how much one issue of that would cost for? Go for it right now. And I told her, and her eyebrows shot to the top of her head.
I can imagine.
And because you never know. And when our stuff is like fairly unique.
Yeah.
The Little Rascals had their own comic book.
Yeah.
Sadly, Amos and Andy had a comic book, but that's okay. We had figured out how we had to pass through some stuff. So the more positive, the more intelligent, the more historically accurate. There are books about African nations or about the Caribbean nations. And they can give kids an insight. Maybe a textbook might be kind of dry, and not show you. So we're on the cutting edge of education, art, literature. People do exhibits about these works, so they have a value.
How did you get into this?
I was a voracious reader as a kid, and my mom would let me read. People at church, I love people at church. They would, why are you reading that stuff? That's gonna rot your brain. I never said a word because I wasn't disrespectful, but I kept it in my head. And I remembered it later when I was visiting Sweden, China, London. I said, yeah, you're right. I should have picked up the books. I'm all over the place now. So the idea is that if you have it in your heart to carry on the message, you never know where it's going to take you. This is like, what's that famous children's book? The People Who Could Fly. Have you ever read that book?
Yeah. Yes.
Where the guy who knows the word to help, and they all just spring. That's what I see this kind being like. It's sort of like in all the places I've been where people are proud of who we are and what we can do and what we're capable of doing, because the mainstream for the longest period of time did not appreciate us. Some people have come around. The Tuskegee experiment, which I'm going to have people look up because it's kind of deep, but that was incorporated into the new Captain America story, where the first Captain America was Black. And how it was incorporated was they had a series of guys who became test subjects for the super serum, and the effects on it. Only one survived it intact. Okay, and so they made that story part of the permanent history of Captain America, not just a what if story or this could happen here. So somebody took our struggle seriously. So you always have a place you can find out about it.
And also one of the goals of DiasporaCon, because there are a lot of universities now that are they created maybe courses around comic and graphic novel art, something like that. Or I know that I think Quinnipiac has one, but there's a school here, the Holton School. It's over on State Street,
right,
in the district. They do a whole lot of building on that too, like teaching people how to build websites and do graphics and all that stuff. It's amazing, like just so many opportunities, Daryl. It's like the reason I started this, I came up with this too, is because I've known Professor Bill a long time. And always went to his talks about, and it was always fascinated with the history of comic books that he had. But in the first DiasporaCon in 2020, and first Lit Fest 2020, when we were virtual, Professor Bill, Alex Simmons, and Jerry Craft, and we had a young lady too on the panel as well. When they started talking about the industry, and I'm like, when I started doing some research online, I was like, we got to continue this some kind of way. So and then our cousin Julius,
yeah,
he went to he always goes to the big Comic-Con at the Javits Center, and you usually, like, Black people are few and far between. And like, it's huge. It's the Javits Center. And outside of the one that they have in Philly, there's a couple of other ones that happen through Black comic conventions that happen throughout the United States. I wanted to focus on the industry and the literary aspect of it, like the opportunities that folks don't realize. Sometimes we're working on something and it's like right here. When we have Joe Young, who has a publishing company right here that people can like bring their stuff to and pitch to, there's an opportunity there. When we have gigantic studios opening up, and they're going to be making films on people's ideas, it's an opportunity. And they also, graphics, people don't realize this in all kinds of movies, special effects.
Yeah,
it goes over and on and on and on, even in theater. They need renditions of all kinds of sets and all that stuff. So this is really strategic. and something that we hope that my intention is to have it around at different colleges, have different colleges receive it, because the opportunities for people of color are huge, and we have to see the alternatives, and everybody has to see how all our talents are. Like Black Panther brought it out. Like everybody went to see Black Panther and like
put it on the map
all over the world.
Yeah,
big in China, excuse me.
Yeah.
But and part of the significance of our culture and our talents and our art, to me, it helps squash some of the mess. Like I mean, we could go have a whole conversation about like racism around the world. You know, Ukrainians are holding up African students from leaving. You know, it's a whole thing. But one of the things with DiasporaCon, we want to showcase the talent, opportunities, and have people envision, and not just like if a child is doodling in church like you was doing or whatever, and not have their parent think, oh, you know, don't do that, because everybody isn't going to be a doctor or lawyer.
Right. The creative aspect, and similar to like, you know, video games, how that started out, and, you know, people got into that. Well, you know, spending time on video games. Well, that's an industry that's $1 trillion industry, I believe, at this point. So, you know, where we can make money in terms of being creative, non-traditionally, you know, you don't have to be, you know, an accountant. You don't have to get a degree in those traditional fields in order to, you know, tap into what your passion is. And a lot of us have the passion internally, more on the creative side, that we can now monetize, but just being exposed to the opportunities that are out there, which I think is going to be significant for this type of conference to get into the public's view.
And Joe Young also created something special. He created an animated series, an animated show, Christmas special, that on Channel 3, God forbid I should mention the competitor, went on the air right after the Peanuts Christmas special. And it was about kids from the neighborhood, Black kids in wheelchairs, you know, talking about how they would deal with the concept of Christmas. And it was called Joe Young's Christmas special. I watched that thing. I definitely bought a copy from him, first of all, because I wanted to support him. But the story is amazing, and it's right in time, and everybody can get something out of it, which is what he does.
Yeah,
exactly. So we're going to have a lot of animation behind. I mean, people aren't just going to be talking; they're going to have their a presentation and talk about their stuff, and it's going to be fun. And you'd be amazed at the old heads. I say old heads, the 40, 50, 60-year-old. That have comic book collections that move with them through their childhood, through college, through their adult life. I'm
telling you, I was one of those people, and I'm mad at myself right now that I didn't keep it. I kept it for a period of time, but you know, I wasn't. This information wasn't available to me. Had I known it, I would have, you know, kept hold of those things that I collected as a kid throughout the years, as even a young adult. So there's value to that, you know, should you hold on to it. So
absolutely. And Sister Ife is modestly, because she's not speaking about something else, because we're still talking about it, but I'm going to just mention it in passing. The number of people who have outstanding collections of comic books of every kind, they are meeting time and time again when people say, well, no, we can't take it to our library. We can't take it to our foundation because we ain't got nobody to take care of it. And I'm saying, what if there was a place that uniquely handled African-American comic book images? Okay. I can't think there's a museum like that. It was always a part of something else. And it was carefully done and carefully planned so that into the future and into the far future, those books never got lost. That would be amazing. Because even I'm looking for a place, if I want to eventually, you know, give out my collection, where I'm being told the same thing. And I'm kind of like, I'm surprised, because I thought people would be thrilled with that idea, you know, but we're talking about that for ourselves. So by us, for us.
So one of our goals of Culturally Lit Fest is to get a building, to attain a building, to showcase. I mean, we're gonna have a whole section dedicated to Black comics, and then another section dedicated to Black art, Of course, we're going to have a library with literature, the whole thing.
And I think nothing speaks more to us doing for us than that. Because if we wait for somebody else, we're going to wait too long. Every day we are losing people who have invaluable collections, and it just scares me and makes me sad. I'm sorry,
in addition to what we already have in the collection at the Stetson, the new Stetson has quite a collection of beautiful things. This will be like for folks to buy things, to come. It's a goal.
Think about something small, something that every year I fight with. I can go online and just say calendars 2021. The number of Black calendars I will find will be this big. The ones of outhouses, giraffes, beavers, dog groups, cat groups, everywhere. I have to fight. I'm going to wind up doing what I used to do in the old days, is making my own calendar. I'm trying to support.
My parents, and Michelle, you probably remember this, at the Unique Boutique, they had, my mom used to specialize in not collecting, but gathering Black calendars to sell. And she had a knack for finding, suppliers throughout the country, to put those on the forefront,
And sometimes spent the whole year looking far and wide.
Yeah.
And the places that produce them always stunned me. Aetna used to do a Black History calendar every year that would just kick butt. They would get the top designers, the top writers. And I wasn't that far from Hartford. I would always try to order one. They don't do it anymore. It's up to us.
You just put some thoughts in my mind.
Well, listen, it's in the business plan.
Okay. So April 23rd.
April 23rd. And we are grateful to Don Sawyer, who is the head of the Global Diversity and Inclusion at Quinnipiac University, because he did not hesitate back in the fall when we brought this idea and said, and we were presenting it to him. I didn't think it was, I thought he had to think about it. While we were talking to him, pitching it, telling him, he was like, okay, here's the date. Put us on Quinnipiac's calendar, and that got the ball rolling. And the support of and I feel like Yale outshines the other university, the other gems of universities that we have in this area, like Quinnipiac and University of New Haven, Alberta's the other schools. But Quinnipiac, they have a beautiful campus. We're very grateful to them, and for Don Sawyer for just like believing in it. I'm probably deserved for a whole bunch of stuff, but
all you need is the idea and put it in front of the right person.
Can I say one thing, my brother?
Absolutely.
That we're going to get a question, and I think we need to answer it here. Can white people come? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is for everyone. It is for everyone to see, everyone to experience, everyone to cultivate an awareness of the talents and the art of the African diaspora.
Yeah.
Everything that we're doing with LIT is about the arts of the African diaspora for everyone to get an awareness of. Because if you know our stories, if you see our talent, if you understand better, maybe some of your stuff, we ain't gonna abolish people being racist, but maybe their perception of things it will be different outside of what you see in the news.
But that's a good point, Professor, that just because it's by Black and for Black doesn't mean it's only Black, because we're mainstream. So we got to invert what's been happening throughout the decades where other things have been mainstream. Our talents, our culture, what we bring to the table is mainstream as well. It's not just for us, it's for everybody.
We have to say, and we do have to say it, pro-Black does not mean anti-white.
Right.
Come on, what year is this?
And it's and that's a perception that only happens with our culture. When somebody does an Italian American festival, I go because I love me some calzones. Like,
absolutely.
You know, it's for everybody, but it's an Italian American. It's their culture.
Yeah.
When it's an Irish parade, it's for everybody.
Yeah.
It's just going to show. Like, so we want people to get into the, like, when you hear the African diaspora, it's going to be from the African. And I say diaspora because we're Caribbean, we're continent, we're African American. Some of us don't even identify.
Right.
So it's for everyone of all races to get and cultivate an awareness in everybody.
Yeah, that's a brainwashing that society has unfortunately placed on the table for us in particular. So I'm excited for what you guys are doing. And again, looking forward to it. April 23rd, DiasporaCon, Black Comic and Graphic Conference.
Yes.
Is that right?
That's a graphic novel conference, not convention. But if people want to come dressed up, they can. But it's not a convention like that. It's a
and again, run down your guests that are going to be participating in it.
Okay, so we're going to have, of course, Professor William Foster, our Connecticut historian, Reggie Augustine, who is native of New Haven, has a comic book series, and is an instructor at Hill House, and Joe Young Publications, Joe Young Industry. Joe Young has a publishing company, comic books, everything. TC Ford, who is also elder and like a professional and been in the industry for many years. Raheem Nelson, a very talented artist and graphic artist and graphic designer. And he's going to be talking about NFTs, y'all. I forgot what NFT stood for, but he knows about that, and he can break that down for people. And then, of course, John Jennings and Michael Jai White and Professor Foster will close out the day with a panel discussion on Black images of comic and graphic novel characters in film.
Okay. Awesome. Eventbrite is where you can get the information.
Eventbrite, DiasporaCon, DIASPORACON on Eventbrite, and it'll come up, and just get your ticket. If you want a table, it's $75.
And move quickly on that.
And everybody will get a meal. That's included in every ticket, a meal.
Is there an email that people can contact you with?
They can contact us at elmcitylitfest@gmail.com. They can call 475-471-4486.
Okay.
475-471-4486. elmcitylitfest@gmail.com.
Awesome. Professor Foster, it's been a pleasure. I'm looking forward to continuing this conversation on April 23rd and seeing everything that
you and I will be talking again, my brother. I'm gonna have you check your attic, see if you got any of them comic books left. I'm just saying.
Look, as soon as we get off of this thing, I'm going into the basement to see. I'm sure. I hope I have something lingering around still.
You'd be surprised. One of the most valuable comic books in my collection came from me by a direction of somebody who knew somebody. This guy sat me down, and all he did was talk for me about 25 minutes. He wanted to be sure what I was going to do with the book. I said, I'm putting it in a collection. And hopefully it goes into a museum or archive someplace. Then he sold it to me. Yeah. And he didn't ask for arm and a leg. It was very fair. And all I had to do was sit and talk with him, which was very pleasurable. You never know what a conversation will lead to. Maybe that's the byword of the Elm City Lit Fest. Conversation is where we start.
That's right.
Ife, you remember the newsstands that used to be around the city, and they used to be right next door to my parents' store. Yeah, that's where I used to hang out. My spare money when I was a kid working. Not most of it, but a lot of it went to comic books. So hindsight is 20/20, but now we know.
And look at the person you have become because you read, you exposed to stuff that other people were not. Everybody had something bad to say about comic books. I don't know where they are, but I know where you are.
True that. Ife, founder of Elm City Lit Fest, thank you so much for joining us today. And again, DiasporaCon, April 23rd, the North Campus of Quinnipiac, which is right off of 91, correct?
Yes, 370 Bassett Road.
Okie doke. Thank you, Professor Foster and Ife.
Thank you, brother.
We're going to have to do this again after the conference and then kind of recap everything and see how we're going to do, moving forward in terms of more events. And I'm claiming this as an annual event from this point on. So we're
I'm claiming it too.
How we do it.
Connecticut on the map with this.
That's right.
All right. Thank you so much.